And with no end in sight to the Ukraine crisis, many analysts say the country's economy can't afford a long, drawn-out conflict. For more on this economic fallout, I'm joined by Klisman Murati. He's the founder of Pareto Economics, a global world affairs research company. Good to see you. Thank you very much. Let me start with this. There's been a lot of talk on who's winning and who's losing. And my theory on this is that nobody's a winner. Everyone seems to be a loser.
I think your sentiments are exactly correct, Phil, because in war, long-term strategy comes at the expense of short-term and mid-term pain. And this has been felt by both Russia and Ukraine and also the rest of the world because this conflict, unfortunately, includes two of the biggest commodity producers, which is necessary for our global development and our global food supply, as well as other commodities which are also essential. So this war is something which is terrible for both sides.
They said earlier on that the sanctions would cripple Russia, would cause Russia to change their mind. It's been almost 3 months now, and it doesn't seem Moscow's changed at least their tune as to how to handle this crisis. It's certainly not letting up. Are we overly optimistic in terms of from the West that the sanctions would have a greater impact?
I think right now, short of kinetic warfare, sanctions are probably the best thing to do right now. And also you have to remember that sanctions take a long time for them to feel their effects. And we can see this, for example, and also politically isolating a country, including with sanctions, are a good combination. That's the best thing any democratic bloc can actually do on the country. We can see the effects, for example, on Iran, although it hasn't had regime change. We see Iran being very isolated, as well as Venezuela and others, and Russia has got the most severe level of sanctions that we've probably seen for a long time. And these take time for them to play out and for them to have effects on an economy. But with Russia being so big and being so important, they have many different modes in which to fight back.
Right. 60 days ago, we didn't know if Ukraine would even have an economy. It looked like it was going to get overrun and completely destroyed. And I know parts of it have been destroyed. What parts of the economy are still, I guess, operating, quote, normal?
Well, look, an economy is a very complex maze of people working, producing goods and services, and this hasn't stopped wholesale across Ukraine. There are certain areas, especially in the west of Ukraine, which are seeing disruptions, but this doesn't mean that the rest of Ukraine isn't functioning, probably not as normal, but as close as possible as they can. The World Bank has pledged almost $1 billion to help fund public services, to pay staff in healthcare, in education, in policing, etc. Again, war is not good for any economy because not only it stops immediate production, but also long-term investment is curtailed, and also corporate insurance and underwriting is stopped and curtailed, and also payouts for insurance claims are through the roof now. So this is having a big impact on its economy and also on its human capital for the long term.
In the last couple of weeks, we've been growing more concerned about the disruption in food supply coming out of Ukraine, along with some other key resources. Even if the war were to stop tomorrow, for example, these issues would not go away, and clearly the conflict is continuing on. What's going to happen in the next couple of months?
As if COVID wasn't bad enough for global supply chains, we've had this come up as well. And we said in our research firm that geopolitical risk is going to be one of the biggest risks that the world economy will face in 2022, and it's come to be. Now, Russia, from our global power index, also is rated the second most powerful country in the world. And this is having a big impact on supply chains because they are such integral to our supply chains in regards to commodities, especially. Oil is through the roof. Inflation across the world is through the roof, not only because of the Russian war, but also due to the impacts of COVID. And this is something which is not only, again, hurting the Russian consumer, but also Putin and also others in the world. And everyone wants to stop to this, I think also including Putin.
Just last question. I mean, if things were to de-escalate from here and investment were to, I suppose, go into Ukraine, would investors not be quite cautious? I mean, isn't that going to be one of the issues? Or would they just pour money in because of the opportunities?
Well, naturally, the devil is in the detail, and it would depend on really what kind of agreement Russia, Ukraine, EU, and the US would come to, which would then give confidence to investors. Investors, again, are very pragmatic, and if there's opportunities to invest, they will, but they're also hedging their bets because of this unpredictable, sort of invasion by Russia. So, as we saw in the corporate insurance world, I bring that back, they have stopped any insurance sort of quotes for any entities in Russia because of this. And it's very hard to convince them otherwise unless a concrete settlement is made with terms and conditions which are clear in black and white for them to then come back into these countries and invest again.
Klisman Murati, I know it's late over there in London. A big thank you to you for keeping us up to date and staying up late for us. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Phillip.